Hello and welcome to another Starcraft 2 commentary video with Gom Jabbar. Today we're going to be looking at an amazing Korean Protoss player known as NEXSickness. And he's going to be playing against LeenockfOu, a very talented Zerg player who was formerly in Code S. I think he's in Code A right now of the GSL. So we're going to be looking at this game in a lot of detail, and this game has a lot of very surprising things for PvZ, and we're going to check it out. So first thing to note is, despite this being Shakura's Plateau, and a Forge Fast Expand being really easy and safe on this map, NEXSickness is choosing to build a pylon on high ground and go for a different build. He's going to go for a 3-8 expand. And you might be wondering, why would you do that when you can get the Nexus down faster, safely? Basically, there's sort of a trade-off for doing a Nexus first or a Forge Fast Expand. If the Zerg scouts that, and certainly he will, he can take a very fast third and just drone up until he has, 80 drones, and then he can make nothing but units, and it's pretty tough to win in that situation. There's very little way to directly pressure the Zerg's economy when you're doing that style. Yes, you can make air units, you can make Stargate units, Void Rays and Phoenixes, but all Zerg has to do is throw down a couple Spore Crawlers, make an extra Queen or two, and he can just keep droning. So this is a reason why a lot of Protosses are going for a 2-base sort of all-in, Blink Stalkers, that sort of thing, 6-gate. So I'm going to quickly pause and note that Sickness is taking both of his gases at the same time at around 18. This is also a 14 gateway because he used double or triple chrono boost before the gateway. So instead of getting this one gas at 14 or 15 and the second gas at 18 or 19, he's actually getting both gases at 18. And we're going to see that this actually works out quite well. So, back to what I was saying. With the Forge Expand, it's very hard to pressure the Zerg and force him to make units rather than drones. So his economy will get a huge lead over yours in the mid-game. And, you can still win. I'm not going to say you can't. You can still pressure the Zerg in the mid-game, but in the early game, it's really, really hard. So the benefits of doing this slower expansion is you have these gateways much faster. You have your tech faster, and you can pressure the Zerg. Zerg can't just know for a fact that you're not going to have any units to attack him with, because you're going to be making 3 gates. There's a possibility of 4-gate and Nexus cancel. Zerg just has to play a lot safer. There's a possibility of units coming out much quicker than a Forge Fast Expand. So, in reality, although the Forge Expand gets your Nexus down a lot faster, this expansion keeps the Zerg drone count a little closer to yours if you play it right. So, as we see, with this double gas, NEXSickness does have the sentry out just in time with plenty of gas, and this build works out just fine. I don't know what benefits it really has over an earlier first gas and a later second gas, but they seem to be about equal. So, I also noticed NEXSickness chrono boosts his sentries a lot. He's not really chrono boosting Warp Gate. It's all on this one gateway and these sentries, which is another very interesting little tidbit. Leenock, of course, is putting down his hatchery a bit late. He went for a gas pool first, which is pretty standard. It's not really bad. It's pretty risky against Protoss to go for a hatch first, so you really can't blame Leenock for doing this. And now he's going to move out and pressure with these units. And Sickness is going to expand. He does have 3 gateways. Yep, there's 3. So, at this point, Another thing you might be wondering is, well, isn't this kind of sentry 3-gate expand? Okay, let me just pause and just say, wow, Sickness has good force fields. And we're going to just watch this because this is amazing. I mean, this looks so scary, right? Oh no, just force field the pylon, no big deal. Oh no, he's getting into the drone line. Well, yeah, let's force field them in, no big deal. So, Sickness loses maybe 3 probes for like 20 Zerglings with amazing force fields, and he loses a single Zealot. Maybe 1 sentry, I'm not really sure about the exact count, but he has 7 sentries, that's plenty. Okay. Back off of that tangent, because I just wanted to show you how amazing Sickness's micro is. We'll be seeing more examples of that in this game. He's doing what looks like a very unsafe build here, because Protosses have been dying left and right to this Roach Ling all-in off 2 base against a sentry expand. Just like this. And you might be wondering, well, you know, how the heck do you defend this? The quick answer is that on Jacuris, it's very easy to force field this, cut the units in half, no big deal, right? Also notice that he's using the Scouting Zealot to check out the unit count. And note, we're seeing a bunch of Zerglings as Sickness. Sickness is seeing all these Zerglings, no Roaches, no Spine Crawlers even. And I'm not sure if he saw that Spire, did he? I don't think he saw the Spire. But, you know, he's suspecting something like this. So, Sickness puts down this little wall with his Robo and Gateway. And he's pretty safe against Lings. He goes for a pretty fast Observer. He actually went 3-gate, expand, very fast Robo without any cannons. In fact, he doesn't have a Forge. Really, really surprising play. He's going to complete this wall in with the Zealot. And he's going to check out what the opponent's doing with this Observer. As we can see, Leenock is going for the Spire. He's clearly making, going to be making Mutalisks and getting his 3rd base down. This is fairly standard Mutaling type of thing, although a lot of the time recently we're seeing Zergs make a Roach Warren first just to be safe from 6-gate. And well, we're going to check out what Sickness's response to this is. He hasn't seen the Spire yet. So here's his Observer. He sees the Spire right now. Boom, there's a Spire. What does Sickness do? 2 Stargates. And he canceled a building. I'm not sure what that building was. I actually want to back up and check out what he canceled. Oh, it was a gateway. Okay, interesting. Okay. So throws down 2 Stargates, cancels a gateway, leaving him with only 4 gates and double Stargate and a Colossus. He's actually going to let this finish. He doesn't cancel it. And look at this. Look how scary this is. Zerg has 8 Mutalisks. We have 2 Stalkers. No Forge, no cannons. And conventional wisdom says that if you see the Spire and then you make Stargate in response to make Phoenixes, it's too late. You're going to lose. And we're actually going to see that that's just not true. Now, he positions the Stalkers very well to fend off the initial harass. We want to not lose any probes. That's a good thing. And now Leenock does a very smart thing and tries to pick off this Zealot, but he won't quite get it. If he could stream in these Zerglings. Although I'm sure Sickness would just force field because he's amazing. So, meanwhile, we are still... Whoa, where'd the camera go? Yeah, we're still fighting off these mutas. We're just trying not to let them into the base. And notice Leenock has actually not seen the Stargate, which is beautiful. Stargate's in a perfect position. And we're just chrono boosting out these Phoenixes. Leenock, on the other hand, is making a zillion drones. He has up to 75. Making a macro hatch, getting upgrades, and he's just sitting on these mutas and lings. Very standard muta-ling play. This is nothing unusual or bad from Leenock. It's a little risky to early pushes, but you know, if you see that coming, you can defend it properly, and it's not a big deal. So here he comes in against the probes, gets a few of them, and 4 phoenixes against, how many mutas is this? 6 now. He's just going to kill them all with amazing micro. Wow. He didn't lose a single phoenix. Now he lost some probes here, but the muta threat is completely gone now. Leenock has 11 mutas. Mutas are only really scary in direct confrontation when they get to big numbers, and Zerg has to rely on his lings to defend this. So once these phoenixes clean up the mutas and keep the muta count low, Sickness is going right back to a ground army. He's still making Colossus. This is really unusual against muta ling. Typically you go rush for blink, rush for psionic storm, and here come the mutas and lings. He just force field the lings out, takes care of all the mutas with the phoenixes. Really strong play. All you need is 1 or 2 Colossus and Zerglings melt almost instantly. And Leenock is going to lose this base. He can't possibly defend it, so he's going to go for a counterattack. Again, very smart. It's pretty much his only choice. And Sickness is going to make his best effort to hold it off. These phoenixes are so fast and mobile that he can just run. He can defend against mutas anywhere they are on the map, really. So these Zerglings are the only thing that are capable of doing much damage, and Sickness uses these double Stargates to make some Void Rays. And amazing block with the Zerglings, and he's just not going to lose that much. Okay, he lost half his probes, but Leenock is going to lose 2 bases. And they lost about the same number of probes, or workers, in fact. So Leenock is still trying to harass, but Sickness has his 3rd base up. And we're back to essentially 1 base economy Protoss versus 2 base economy Zerg. But Zerg has a terrible unit mixture against what Protoss has. Leenock has to continue to harass with these Zerglings. And right now, after killing these 2 bases, all Sickness has to do is defend and macro up a lot of probes. We see how useful this little wall-in is here. Leenock can't really do any more damage. And we're just going to keep making probes, of course. Starting to mine out our main. And here's something else that we don't see too often. Lots and lots of Void Rays against Zerg. This is really kind of unusual. It was a bit of a fad, briefly, a while ago, to make Colossus and Void Rays off of like 2 base, and it was seen as kind of unstoppable and imbalanced a while, like, you know, for a very brief time a while ago. But then Zergs figured out that you just use an infestor and fungal everything and it just dies, so people stopped doing it. But as we can see here, this mix of Void Rays and Phoenixes just dominates the air. And we know that Zerg doesn't have these infestors out. He's spending all this gas on all of these air units, and we're just going to let him do that. Because Void Rays beat Corruptors, and Phoenixes beat Mutas, so we just kind of don't mind that. We don't care. We're happy about that. It's fine. Leenock's going to continue to pressure with Zerglings, and he will actually get into the base. No, he won't. There's a Zealot there. That's one hidden Zealot. Yeah, there he is. You can see him. So no damage at all done. And Leenock has to, you know, try to expand, but the worker counts are even now. They're even. Income-wise, Sickness is ahead. It was just a brilliant response to the Mutalisks, and now Leenock is insisting on trying to get air control. He's insisting on it, and this is something that happens occasionally, where Zergs are saying, you know, oh, you make Phoenixes and you can beat my Mutas? Well, I'll make Corruptors and they beat Phoenixes, so I'll keep being able to harass. But the the mutas, they just die instantly whenever this engagement happens. And the Void Rays and Stalkers are going to obviously clean up the Corruptors. Leenock's going to try and snipe some of these Colossus, and will he get any... wow. Will he get any Colossus? Yes, he gets a couple. And we make enough of these Zealots to fight off this many Zerglings, and Sickness doesn't have to worry about the mutas anymore. Leenock is still making mutaling, but he just doesn't have to worry about it. The muta count is so low right now that they're not a threat. We're still making these air units. We're still making Colossus. So we're kind of going back in time a little bit, even though this is a recent replay. Within the last couple months, we're going back in time to this period where Colossus Void Ray was super imba. And we're just using Colossus Phoenix with the transition to Void Rays when we know our opponent isn't going for those infestors very quickly. And he is going to be able to get into the base, but very nice force field, of course. And at this point, you know, we've got High Templars. Of course, Leenock's quite good at dodging storms, but once again, the muta count is so low, we just don't worry about it that much. And, you know, we just have Archons, we have Stalkers, we have the ability to make a bunch of Phoenixes, even though we're not right now. And we have a bunch of Zealots to fight off this Zergling harass. Leenock has to switch away from the mutas, and we can see that he's making 15 roaches at this point. Zergs who are going muta-ling are doing it so they can buy time for their economy to gain an advantage. And we do see a little more harass here, but it's not going to do that much. You have to realize that a Zerg has to pretty much switch away from the mutas and the Zerglings at some point. And typically that's going to be roaches. They're not going to switch to Hydra because, I mean, the units that are built to counter muta-ling counter Hydras. High Templar, Storm, Zealots. Typically, in order to regain control of the ground eventually, because Zerglings are pretty bad mid to late game, I would say late game. Mid game they're okay in large numbers, but they're pretty. They get worse and worse once more Colossus and Side Storms are on the field. Zerg is going to switch over to roaches. That's just very typical. And yeah, we can see that he doesn't have air dominance. Sickness just keeps making these Void Rays, and if you keep massing Void Rays and a few Phoenixes, Zerg is going to need to make Hydras to deal with that. There's nothing else he can do to deal with it. It's nothing. He can't really get control of the air at this point. His ground control is assured now with these roaches. He needs the roaches. Without the roaches, he loses the game here. And because he was so late making them, and roaches are, of course, not... I mean, they're good, but they're pretty short range. Force fields are still very effective against them. And, oh, guess what? Void Rays can hit roaches. So all we have to do is use these ground units, like Sickness is doing, to focus down the Corruptors. And then we just let the Void Rays tear into the roaches. And if he engages, he's sacrificing his entire army. It's a very bad prospect for Zerg. And Sickness is going to keep making Void Rays. This is astounding to me. I'm blown away. And this is a common theme for all of his PvZs. He reaches a point in the game where he has all these Void Rays. Zerg, and he had all those Phoenixes early on. We could see that Zerg couldn't really deal with these Void Rays at this point in the game without going Hydras. But we have Psystorm, we have Colossus, or you know, we had Colossus. As Sickness, we're opening Colossus, so that Zerg says, "Well, I certainly can't go Hydras," and then he's going. Because of the super fast Colossus, the Mutalisks were actually a great decision. he's going to have a lot of, Protoss won't have much anti-air. He's spending all his gas in Colossus. Mutas are strong. And it's true. But Sickness goes for those Phoenixes. He fights off the mutas. He keeps going Colossus. And suddenly, Zerg is playing pure Zergling against Colossus, Zealot, Stalker, Sentry. This is a terrible prospect. And that allows Sickness to kill off a couple bases and do a ton of damage. And it also dissuades Leenock from going those early Hydras. And it dissuades him from going mutas, or any air, really. He just can't deal with Protoss air. So what can he possibly do? He has to go Roaches, and he just can't switch over to Broodlord, which is the ideal Zerg endgame. Essentially, and this is actually a cute move by Leenock, going for these queens into the battle, but I mean, essentially, he just has to keep making Corruptors and hoping he can kill off all the Void Rays, which incidentally, it's not really going to work. Void Rays are really good, and Corruptors are really terrible. So basically, we're just going to kill off all the Corruptors and then let our Void Rays kill all the Roaches. Easy peasy. And you just have to think about Zerg's options at this point. Going back to Colossus production, he has to mass up Roaches and mass up Corruptors, because he just can't do that much else. He can't go Hydras. We have Psystorm, we're making Colossus. He can't really go for lots of Zerglings, because we've got Archons, we have Psystorm, we have Colossus, we have Void Rays, which the Zerglings can't hit air. And it would be kind of insane if they could hit air, but they can't, thank goodness. I mean, what would they do? Like, jump off of the ground and just sort of peck at these guys? Anyway, so Zerg is dissuaded from making Hydras, making Zerglings, Mutas, Corruptors, Broodlords, Ultras. The Void Rays are so strong. It's amazing that more Protosses aren't doing this kind of thing. And it's just forcing Hydras, but Zerg really never wants to make Hydras, unless it's for like an all-in timing kind of thing. They're just not that good, and we've got these High Templar and Colossus. So you just have to think, what can Zerg do? Now, we do see Infestors. Infestors are basically the answer. Roachling Infestor, and this is actually a really cool kind of wall-in that buys enough time for the Blink Stalkers to get over here. So pretty neat little tactic there. And yeah, we're going to be, like, the only thing Zerg can really do against all these Void Rays and the Colossus is Infestor. As I was saying, the reason that this style fell out of favor, the Void Ray Colossus style, is that Zergs have Infestors. There you go. And we could see, though, that it was so hard for Leenock to transition into the Infestors because of the Muta Corruptor thing, and he was struggling for that air dominance. He just didn't have the gas to spend on them, or the tech. He wasn't really in a good position. Now, we see amazing feedbacks from Sickness, sacrificing most of his High Templar, unfortunately. And now, I mean, Sickness also is floating quite a bit of minerals, but this is such a gas-heavy army. It's rather astounding, and you can't really blame him for having this many minerals. But yeah, the Roaches are just so bad against this that he needs the Infestors. And basically all Sickness needs to do at this point is make a few High Templar, get good feedbacks off on the Infestors, and let the rest of his army just go to work. Roaches can't do anything, Hydras can't do anything. Protoss owns the ground, and he basically owns the air as well. So, I mean, the point I'm making is that this is kind of the Protoss super army. Colossus, Void Rays, and High Templar. And, of course, some ground support with Stalkers. You need something, or else the Roaches can just kill all the Colossus. And Sickness has an amazing economy. Better even than Leenock's. which is never a situation you want to be in as Zerg. And he's floating almost 3k minerals. Cygnus could probably just have a huge army and kill Leenock right here, but, you know, unfortunately his macro is one of his big problems, as I've been watching a lot of his replays. So we've got this super army of, you know, feedbacks, Blink, Void Rays, Colossus, and Cygnus here did it in such a way that he was never really vulnerable. You know, he opened with the 3-gate expand to keep the possibility of pressure on the Zerg, so that the Zerg has to slow down his economy. He went for that fast Colossus with the Robo. And Leenock did the perfect counter. He went for mutas, like, really fast. Which is very commonly just like, oh, you went fast Robo? I went mutas, you die. And we can see that Cygnus has an answer to that. He threw down 2 Stargates and made Phoenixes. And that was really astounding to me. That you can still go for this 3-gate expand Robo and be safe against mutas. Now, again, we're going to see great expands. Great feedbacks from Cygnus, and we're looking at this great space control. He's closing off this choke point in the middle of the map with cannons. And what this does is it puts a stop to burrow infestor harassment. Very common now to see infested Terran harassment with burrow, and that's not really possible. He has his bases pretty well walled off, and now, you know, what can Zerg do? His mutas got shut down, which seemed like the perfect counter. The Lings were worthless with the Colossus on the field and the Void Ray production. He can't go Hydras, he can't make anything from Hive Tech at all, really, because of the Void Rays. He has to go mass Roach. He has to. And Stalker, Colossus, Void Ray is just amazing against mass Roach. And of course he needs to have these infestors to even have a chance of killing this army. So by the time the infestors are out, which Protoss knows is slow because of the amount of gas spent on Zerg's air army, you know, by the time the infestors are out, we have HTs, High Templar with Storm. There's just not really an issue. We feedback everything. We don't really need Storm against this army because Storm doesn't do that much to roaches, and they're okay against infestors, but, you know, again, not something we need. And we just feedback them all. And then our super army takes care of everything else. And Leenock, of course, I assume that says GG. I don't read Korean. So that's the game. It just looks awesome. It's sort of a turtley style. Protoss. The only time Protoss really attacked was to take out this base and this base after the mutas failed, and yeah, use some Void Rays to kill this base. Which, by the way, Void Rays kill bases so quickly. It's awesome. So we can see this really strong style from Cygnus, and we saw an amazing counter to mutas. Interesting Warp Prism play. We have a mothership possibly in production, not quite, but we had a fleet beacon. Oh, the mothership is finished. We have the mothership. It's out. And this is obviously a good thing. You have Cloak, you have Recall, you have Vortex. It's great. By the way, Vortex with Colossus actually still works. Like, it's going to clump up their units and allow you to do a ton of splash. So I highly recommend that. Yeah, so I guess that's the end of my analysis. This is just a really impressive play from NEXSickness, beating LeenockfOu, who is a very good Zerg. Leenock went for the traditional counter to this fast Robo after the expansion. He went for those mutas, and Sickness didn't even have a forge or cannons at all. He was totally unprepared for the mutas, but as soon as he saw the completed spire, he didn't even see it building, he saw it completed. He immediately threw down 2 stargates and warped in nothing but stalkers, and held off the mutas long enough for him to get 4 phoenixes. That's all he needed, 4 phoenixes. And he killed every muta, as we saw, suffering some probe losses, but not a ton. Not enough to set him behind that much, and he just goes and counterattacks because the Zerglings won't be able to do anything when he has Colossus out, and force fields. And at this point, he knows that he owns the air. There won't be any more mutas. And he knows because of the Colossus, he owns the ground from Hydras at the very least, so he just starts pumping Void Rays for the rest of the game. And then he has Colossus, Void Ray. He goes for High Templar after a time, and he's safe against infestors, and his army is ridiculous. Now, you need to do this gradually because of how gas expensive it is. You know, all these units cost a ton of gas. So, that is something to keep in mind. You can't just rush for Void Ray, Colossus, High Templar off of one base. It's ridiculous and won't work. He had to wait until he was at least 3, more realistically 4 bases to do that. But you know what? Protoss is great at defending. You make a lot of cannons. You have Colossus, and you're pretty good. So, I think I've rambled enough. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was entertaining and informative, and stay tuned for further videos. Bye, guys.